All right. Welcome back to another episode of Humans of Flippa. I'm your host, Steve McGarry, and today I am joined by Tanya Van Gastel. She is a fellow founder and she sold the Multiverse AI on Flippa. How's it going, Tanya?
Hey, Steve, super happy to be here. I always tell people how much I love Flippa, especially when they're kind of looking to sell their business. I'm like, have you tried Flippa?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that it's a route that they can take, and I've told a bunch of entrepreneurs about it. But let's start with your personal journey. What kind of led you to start the Multiverse AI, and how did you get going?
Yeah. So we started it 2 years ago, me and two co-founders, and kind of like the place that I was at back then, I was working full time in like corporate tech, not having a great time, to be honest, was kind of getting burned out. It was a really difficult work environment. I was working in the marketing team. And then I approached two people about, hey, how about, there's all these like AI things coming out, like ChatGPT had just released like 6 months before. Personally, like I love sci-fi. I love to like try new tools and stuff like that. And so I was playing around a lot with these AI tools and I thought, how about, we turn this into a little like side project? And then we together like built this thing that this like landing page that basically you could upload 10 of your own photos and then you'd get 100 AI generated photos of yourself in like different styles. And so one of those styles was like a professional headshot style. And it became super clear that nobody cared about any of the other styles, which, by the way, were like Star Wars or like see yourself in a Marvel movie, which I thought was super cool. But really nobody cared about. And so everybody was AI generating these professional photos of themselves and using them on LinkedIn. And we were like, wow, actually, like there's a really good business use case here. And so we started going all in on that. We started at like $9 and then we ramped up to like $29 and then we became too scared to like ask for more money. But that's kind of, how things got starting. Completely bootstrapped, really focused on like profitability from day one. And we after like about 6 months after we launched, we got to like 10,000 US dollars monthly revenue. And so that was kind of the kicker to be like, wow, this could actually be something.
Cool, very cool. And you get to 10K as like the milestone. At what point did you talk about selling, and was that sort of the plan from the get go?
It definitely was not the plan from the get-go. I think as like a first-time founder, I mean, I didn't know anything, I was really like, first of all, I came from a background where everything was about marketing budgets. Maybe your manager is like, "Oh, hey, we're doing this campaign or this feature." And they're like, "You have $20,000. Just go and like figure it out." And so this time I was like, well, I have absolutely no money. What am I going to do? So I learned about like SEO and AI SEO, and then we grew completely organically, which was really great. But we didn't know anything, right? So like I never thought about selling. It's a long time even to have good conversations about like shareholders structures, opening like an actual entity, a lot of like standard business admin that I think as like a first time founder is really, really hard because you've just never had to deal with it. And so our sale we didn't even consider it until about like a year and a half or so after. And it became really clear that, me and my co-founders, we wanted to do different things. And that's kind of when we started to like slowly look into, okay, like what are our options for a potential exit? We looked at a couple of different platforms. And then basically what ended up happening is I met this woman who works at Flippa. She's one of the brokers and she was so lovely and helpful. I ended up having like a Google Meet with her and she was like, "Why don't we like list you and we'll just see kind of like what happens." And then 2 months after that, the money was like in our bank account and like everything was finished. And so that was, yeah, really fast, I think, but super, yeah, super crazy that all of that happened because we really did go from like launching to selling and like finalizing the sale in like 2 years.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And it's always good to sort of sell on the way up. So let's kind of shift gears to
I don't know if we did
milestones.
that. I mean, I wish we did that. But I think we sold on, like, not all the way down, which
Hmm.
is good, but it was definitely not at, like, the height of it, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of the business model, I think a lot of people listening and watching are going to be curious
Yeah.
about like how you guys generated revenue. You mentioned there was
Mhm.
a subscription, but
Yeah.
can you walk us through the
No.
actual the business model?
Yeah, for sure. So our business model was that we had a B2C and a B2B product. And so B2C, basically one guy, they get to the landing page. I can talk more about the marketing later, but they get to the landing page and they decide, I want some AI headshots. They immediately purchase. There's no free trial. There's no nothing. And then afterwards you go and you get your headshots. Takes about 2 hours after upload. That was our B2C model. So super high conversion rates because we mostly worked through organic SEO and like very bottom of funnel affiliates, which was great because we got like 8 to 10% conversion rate on our landing page. Also with a one-time purchase product, people are kind of fine to put like $30 down. It's very different with a subscription model where people are a lot more apprehensive. You maybe want to give them a free trial. But with this kind of model, it was like very straightforward. Our biggest shift and kind of like smart strategic move, I would say, is when we started to do B2B. And we launched in like, I would say, April of 2023. And then by October, we had launched a B2B model. And so B2B was a magical shift for us because basically, instead of having to convince like 500 people, one person could just get 500 headshots for their entire company or their entire team. And so we even had people from like Google, from Walmart, from McKinsey, like buy headshots, our headshots for their own internal teams. Um, Paired with the shift that, a lot of people had started to go remote. And so basically you couldn't send a photographer to like 500 people's house and then expect all of them to like look the same. Also, it'd be really expensive. And so for people to just be able to get like virtual headshots online was this like huge shift for them. And I think we were really one of the first like online AI headshot generators that did that. And we focused exclusively on professional headshots. So I think a big difference with some of the other headshot generators is that maybe they would do like dating photos or maybe they would do like Christmas photos and like that really takes away from your core value proposition, especially for a B2B audience that really cares about presentation and looking professional. So no HR manager is going to buy you if you're also doing like dating photos or Christmas photos.
Nice. Love that.
Yeah.
And a fun story about headshots. I remember when I was at a firm in San Francisco, everybody would stand in front of the same section of bricks as the
Yes.
backdrop. So it was like everybody would go in front of the red brick
Yes.
section of exposed brick in San Francisco, and everybody would take pictures at like the exact frame. So I
Yeah.
see the value proposition there, especially after the pandemic and with remote work and stuff like that, having
100%.
it aligned, because I actually got to experience it analog of like stand in front of this
So
section.
hard.
It is, and getting
Yeah.
scheduling for everybody
Oh my
is
god.
crazy.
It's so expensive for the company too.
Yeah,
Like, sure, the business hours, but then if you're a remote team, you're gonna do it during like a yearly like remote or a yearly like retreat. And those days are so, so precious. And so instead of spending like quality time, you're actually spending like 6 hours just waiting in line for like a camera,
yeah,
which is so, yeah, it's like
yeah,
standard practice, but it's horrible because, maybe you'll have like turnover or somebody new joins and then you go to like the company landing page and you see like 20 photos. Everybody has a photo except for the new person. They just have a completely different photo and it
yeah.
looks super incongruous. So, yeah, that was really something that we like targeted very, very heavily.
Very cool. Very cool. And let's talk about growth strategies. Like, what were some of the things that you implemented? Was it SEO? SEO was a big
Yeah.
one. How did you really position to onboard these HR managers or the ICP?
Yeah. So we basically did no sales managing. Like that was because we were only three people, right? We were completely bootstrapped. We like at some point we hired a customer service girl who was so great. But before that, the co-founders were doing like all of the customer service as well, which is really difficult and time intensive. And like my like ultimate tip for like founders, hire your admin person first because it's gonna just take you so much time to get through everything. But I would say like in terms of marketing, we tried everything. Like literally as like a one-person marketing team, I was all over Reddit. I tried to learn like paid advertising, PR. I got us into like Rolling Stone and Forbes and stuff like that, which was really great because I have a background in PR. And then none of these things really worked to drive any kind of like traffic or conversion. Except Reddit would like kind of help, but then I would get like 10 accounts banned. It was just such a pain, to be honest. But what worked really, really well was affiliates and SEO. And so I got super in depth, learned everything that I could about like Ahrefs, about how keywords work, about how to write like listicles that really work to get you recommended in things like AI search, Google, ChatGPT. And that was a huge shift because over time, as we got more and more affiliates, and we also did more affiliate outreach. So affiliate outreach is basically where, there are SEO writers who do really, really good work writing listicles. Um, they write these listicles about here are the 10 best AI headshot generators. And then they put a couple of different ones at the top. You go and you ask them like, hey, if I give you a free trial, will you, write a review, maybe include us in, and, we can even give you a really good deal for an affiliate. They would basically go and write these articles, and some of these people would get like $20,000 revenue from just writing one listicle, which was absolutely crazy, but they were just so, so good at it. And that was really like the power of, SEO because their win was basically our win. Um, End of the day, I did like a analysis of like all of our revenue channels and all like where everything was coming from, and about 60% was coming through SEO, and then the remaining 20% through affiliates, which was absolutely crazy. But it was the only way that I think for us we could really build a profitable business because with, ad revenue or like paid ads, generally your margins are so, so low that it only really makes sense if you have a recurring product that has like way higher lifetime value, right? Because our lifetime value really depended on that $29 or targeting B2B. And so if you were pushing ads, your acquisition cost was just going to be so, so high that it doesn't make any sense unless maybe you fundraised or you can get like higher retention and stuff like that. But for our business model, we were really looking at SEO just because the acquisition cost is literally $0.
Hmm. Hmm. And I love that you had sort of the actual dial in of the amount of affiliate or the percentage of affiliate and SEO.
Yeah.
That's really great. So, why did you just decide it was the right time to sell? I think timing is always a big topic,
Yeah.
but why was it for
Well,
you?
I think partially with like our co-founders, we just decided that we really didn't want to continue working on this together. We kind of had like different visions on what we wanted. Um, I think that's totally fine. I think that's something that like happens a lot. I don't think it was very easy at the time for any of us, but I think it's like, with this kind of businesses, it's really, really hard for a first-time business owner to be doing well. I think for us to be able to go from like launch to sale in 2 years was an incredible thing. I think it's something that is like really rare. Um, a second reason was that I was really excited about building another business as well. And so I kind of like went all in on SEO. And now I kind of went all in on SEO and also on building a team because that was also something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to, hire people. I wanted to build a bigger team. I know my co-founders weren't that keen on it, which is also totally fine. there's different, types of businesses for these types of things. But I'm really happy that like now I got to, build a team and have a really great like company culture in terms of how we want to grow and stuff like that. And so I think I learned a lot from Multiverse that I can take into like my current business where like, we launched like 6 months ago and we're already 10 people, also completely bootstrapped, which is kind of crazy. But, yeah, I think every business, when you, like, decide to sell, ideally, you do sell when you're, like, at the peak, but that's really, really hard to time. Um, but if you feel like the need to sell, a lot of the time, I feel like you're gonna know when the offer is right. And for us at the time, and I think especially now, to be honest, the offer was definitely right. I'll also say, like, when I'm looking at Nano Banana, the new ChatGPT Pro and stuff like that coming out, I'm so happy we sold because, like, I don't know if you could still do an AI headshot generator at this point in time. I think it's become a lot harder just because the freemium solutions are so much better.
Yeah,
So
I
especially in an
agree.
AI space, it's like if you're building a tool that's profitable and doing well, you never know when you're going to get disrupted by something like a GPT or a Gemini.
Yeah, yeah, and it moves so
Yeah,
fast that,
so fast,
yeah, it moves so
so
fast.
crazy fast. Yeah, and the
So
tool is so good as well. So
how
it's
did,
very
how did Flippa really support you? So what I know you kinda talked about the broker,
yeah,
the listing. Walk us through that process of how that support and process went.
yeah. So Louisa, my broker, an angel, I basically talk to her every day about on like WhatsApp about how like what are kind of like our options, right? So when let's say like you list, you've gone through the whole listing process and you're now live on Flippa, a bunch of people start messaging you. A bunch of people start messaging you who are like potential buyers, but they're asking you a bunch of questions that you as a first time seller have never even thought about. And so some of the questions are like, "Oh, can you tell me about like what your potential like earnout could look like, or what could your potential like how long after you sell the company would you want to stay?" There's just a bunch of things that also some of these questions are like, what is an APA versus like an SPA? And so it gets a little bit technical. I didn't know anything about these things, and so it was super helpful to have a broker to essentially like ask questions and who would actually be experienced in this field, right? So it's like, do you want to go and learn everything by yourself when it comes to something that is as important as selling your entire business? Or would you like to have somebody who's done this like 15 times on your side and then just kind of like walk you through it so you don't have to be super stressed all the time about every detail? And I am super happy that I was able to do the latter. But yeah, I would say like support in terms of, how we could actually move forward with a sale, helping me vet of some of the buyers. So sometimes a buyer would just ask a bunch of questions, and for somebody that doesn't have any experience in it, it's kind of hard to understand if they are actually interested or not interested, especially in the particular type of exit that you're looking for. So we were looking for an all cash exit, which I think most people are looking for an all cash exit, to be honest. But it just was super helpful to help us filter out what is actually people that you would like to continue speaking to and people who would not like to continue speaking to. Um, Also, when we were further in the process of like doing the sale, she was really good at talking to the buyer and like asking certain questions in terms of like the contract, helping to review that, putting in things like milestones, things that I like, of course, had not even thought of, even though I did run everything through like ChatGPT. But then ChatGPT is also like not necessarily the most experienced in terms of these really complicated sales structures. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but the TLDR is that it was great to have a human on your side.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely, definitely agree. Having a
Yeah,
broker and having somebody that's like a level level-headed person coming in
yeah.
that's not emotionally attached to
Mhm.
the
Well,
business,
you sold 3 businesses. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster because chipping away at the value of something that you've
Yeah,
created and
yeah,
built and, really put a lot of effort into can be very tough emotionally. So having a broker
yeah.
to bounce ideas off of and just sort of share the roller coaster um, with them helps, and to be buttoned up because most entrepreneurs I know that sell for six, seven, eight, nine figures aren't the most buttoned up people. They are like just going for it.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what it takes. So having a broker that's like very professional, very organized, very, systematized with everything they do really helps that conversation with buyers. So in my experience, it kind of keeps things organized when it's normally chaos. For
You're talking about, like, the visionary founder versus, like, the very organized, like, executor. I think that's
uh
super fair. I
yeah,
think that's a
yeah,
lot of, like, what it is,
yeah.
because how are you gonna move forward? Who's making the, like, follow-up and the action plan?
hmm So that's a good segue into preparedness. Like, how did you prepare the business? Because
Yeah.
a lot of times things get lost, it gets crazy. So how did you prepare this one specifically?
We did not prepare that well. We really like, you're gonna see a common theme here, which is that a lot of these things were things that we learned and that I know now, but that I definitely didn't know at the time. Ideally, when you sell a business, you understand the financials of your business. You kind of understand like the financial story of, this is when we spent this, this is where this was coming from, this is why, there's no profit in this month, but there's profit in this month. I did not know that. And I kind of went into my first call with a potential buyer just being like, oh my God, I had no clue that any of this was coming at me, but then afterwards you learn and you kind of prepare. Um, I would say that like one big thing for us was that um we didn't have a team to sell along with. So the buyer had stipulated that we be present for advisorship afterwards for a certain period of time, which was like totally fine. But ideally, even when you are a SaaS, and we had our customer service person, thank God, but ideally when you're a SaaS or a service or something, you do have a team or somebody who kind of supports and onboards the buyer throughout the process to go along with that sale. And so we didn't really have that many people. We only had that one person who was our customer service person. And thank God, luckily, she was able to, be included into that sale as well, which was really helpful. But yeah, I would say in terms of like, SOPs, checklists, good admin, clear financials, all really important things for your prep. Probably not things that we really had initially. And so that preparation was definitely, a pretty strong learning curve. Yeah, but Steve, like you mentioned that it was an emotional roller coaster for you when
Mhm,
you sold, like, I totally agree. And I think that people don't really talk about that, partially because, not that many people in the world have actually like sold a business, no matter how small or big. And, ours is definitely on the smaller side. But every founder that I speak to who has exited has said that it was super bittersweet.
mhm, for sure. And it's a great segue into valuation because that's sort of where the bittersweet comes from. Is everybody comes with their high valuation
Yeah,
because emotions attached to it, and then once conversations start, it's this sort of sobering um, realization that a
yeah,
lot of people get very discouraged and uncomfortable with, where that roller coaster
yeah.
begins, basically, where you start up high and then all of a sudden there's the buyers coming in that are going through the valuation. So how did you go about determining the valuation? Did you work with the broker? Did
Oh,
you use a valuation
yeah.
tool? What was that like?
We we initially went through it based on vibes. We went through a whole valuation process literally based on vibes because we assumed that it would be X amount of annual revenue, but that mostly counts if you are a proper SaaS with a subscription model. And so there are some benchmarks for, the subscription models, like what kind of exits do things look what do exits kind of look like based on your business model? But because for us, we were a one-time purchase, you don't have really any of the benefits of like a SaaS subscription model, right? Because buyers can drop off at any time. You have to kind of keep earning them every single month. With a subscription model, I think that SaaS, you know, what do you call it? Multipliers? SaaS multipliers generally look like 2 or 3 times, maybe even higher. For us, I can't speak too much to the exact valuation, but I can tell you that we initially hoped that it would be, very similar in terms of a subscription model, and then we very rapidly declined our price because we just didn't see as many people coming in as we would have liked, and we really wanted to procure any kind of exit in X amount of time. Put a timeline for ourselves. Um, Let me actually also share that we ended up selling in June of this year, but we had started preparing for an exit in September of the previous year. And that preparation of that really just looked like putting together all of our not tax documentation, but like all of our financials. So really working with our like business agency to help us sort through how much is our profit, our revenue, our, losses, everything per month. And that took a crazy amount of time. That took like 2, 3 months just for that. And so by the time that like, March the next year came around, we were like, wow, we feel like we've been in this for like months already. And we're really looking forward to, go through any kind of like exit process. So we massively decreased our price to something that we were still like comfortable with, but that also we knew would be able to get us like an all cash deal with like a relatively fast exit. Um, I would say like, was I the happiest person I've ever been with like the exit price? Probably not, but I don't know. I always think like, will it ever be, exactly the thing that I want? Not necessarily will it ever be enough, but I think your ballpark, especially as an entrepreneur, shifts really like devastatingly quickly when you start talking about numbers because we tend to be the kind of people where it's never enough, right? Like if you had told me 2 years ago that I'm going to build a business that does over like 200K annual revenue, I would have been like, wow, that's crazy. I could never see myself doing that, because I was working full time. And then I became an entrepreneur and then I hit that milestone and that milestone and that milestone. And then it feels like, oh, but, now I have all of these friends who are doing like a business that is 10 times bigger than mine at like much better profit rates. And so I should do that. And like, why am I not doing that? But that's such a devastating thing to think. And that's something that I try not always succeed at, but that I like try to really like stay away from. So I like to think of an exit, I sold the whole company. And so whether or not that sum was a great sum or not, I took away so much from it. I'm really happy that we were able to get out of that because it landed me to where I am right now, and I'm really happy with where I am right now. Um, I don't know if that's helpful, but
Yeah, no,
honestly, I
definitely.
think a win is a win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it just helps knowing that understanding the process also,
Yes.
is crucial. Like, you can't really understand it until you go through it, and you did it, so, that helps pave the way for the future. So, you already mentioned that your broker was an angel, so I love that. How
He was.
long did the entire process take? You said it was 2
Yeah.
years from founding
Mhm.
to the exit, but you said how many months was the actual transaction?
Yeah, so the actual transaction was only 1 month. It was about like 35 days or something like that, maybe even 30. We were on Flippa for I don't quote me on this. I think a month and a half or 2 months. I think we took 1 month, and then after the first like 30 days, the person who ended up being the buyer contacted us, and then 30 days after that, we had completely finalized the sale. Yeah, because the buyer had essentially made an made an offer after
Oh,
we
yeah.
had decreased the price, and that offer was, like, within a 5% margin of what we wanted, and we were like, "It's time.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it."
And, like,
And
pivotal moments, were there any, like, make or break moments in the
during the, like, negotiation,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, I think we didn't really negotiate that well. Like, I don't think we didn't negotiate. We weren't like, "Oh, how about we ask for, like, a little bit more?" We were like, "No, thank God somebody actually wants to, like, buy our business. Let's go forward with it." Uh, I would say, like, pivotal moments, I was a bit anxious. That's an understatement. I was very anxious during the whole process because I think, it's all fine when you're kind of in the stage where you're waiting for offers and stuff like that. But then when you're like so close, when it's like, oh, they like signed maybe like a letter of intent or whatever, but they haven't like actually sent the money. Um, you're like, wow, I really hope nothing goes wrong right now, but you don't know. And so that's for me when I was like at my most anxious until like the time that the money like completely landed in our account. I was like, I think they're going to cancel. I think they're going to cancel. I don't know what's going to happen. But nothing has been like completely locked until it's actually, not even signed, but the money's in the account. And I say that because like I have had friends who told me about their exit experience and deals can completely fall through at kind of like any moment. And so that terrified me,
Yep.
you know?
Definitely.
Yeah. Have you
Definitely.
experienced anything similar to that as well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, 6 months of diligence and things falling through at the end is quite quite brutal, and it happens
Yes.
to the majority
Yeah.
of companies. So,
Yeah.
moving fast, like what you did, where it's about 30 days or so,
Mm.
is the outlier. Like, that doesn't always
Yeah.
happen. The benefit of Flippa, of course, is that that does and can happen because it's
Yeah.
just, um, you're directly communicating with everybody, so communication is pretty key with it to manage all the expectations, and, that's awesome that you moved quickly through it.
Yeah.
So, with the compromise, we talked about valuation, we talked about preparing, um, you know, what were some of the lessons that you took from the compromises that you
Mhm.
had to make?
Um, I think it's a mental thing. I think so much of entrepreneurship is a mental thing about like managing your energy, managing your happiness, managing like how you see things. Um, one narrative out of all of this is that, wow, I worked on a business for like 2 years and I walked away still having to, continue, definitely like continue working, not being in like retirement or something, even though I sold an AI startup, right? But then the other side, another narrative that I could choose is, wow, I built and sold a business in 2 years and I didn't fail. And I actually walked away with something that is like very significant financially for me, and that allowed me to learn so many things that I could actually start another business where, in like 6 months, we built a team of 10 people and we got to 350,000 K ARR because of all the lessons that I learned in the first one. And so I think for a little while, I was in that first narrative, and that was really painful because it's so easy to like be super hard on yourself and be like, oh, it's never enough. I should, push myself more, work harder, negotiate harder, um, suffer a little bit more to like chase my goals. Or I could put myself in the second one. And I think I slowly transitioned to that and be like, actually, this is great. I'm just going to take the win and move forward, because that's also something entrepreneurs I think are really good at is moving forward
Mhm.
and thinking about what you want to do in the future. What is the next step? What is something that you're really excited about? What is something that you actually want to do with your life or, sell to be honest or like
Yeah,
market?
yeah.
And I think that's something that I find really exciting. It's like it's the AI era. There's a billion AI companies that you could start right now. And there's so many opportunities, I think, in that field right now. And so personally, I love AI SEO. I see it as like it's literally the most sci-fi thing ever. You can control how people like you talk to an algorithm and then you can control what comes out of it and the kind of information that people see. That's crazy, you know? So it's that kind of stuff that I'm like, wow, that's so exciting. Let's find out more about that
Mhm.
and see if there's something interesting that we can do here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always love to talk about multiverse because I think there's so many lessons there from, literally every single angle. But I think more than anything, I'm really happy about how I was also able to close that chapter and just take all the lessons that I learned there with me to a next one.
Yeah. And, not really being able to just not have any involvement in the company moving forward, a
Yeah.
clean
Mm.
sale. How did it change your life, I think, after you
Yeah.
closed? I mean, was there a big yeah, how did it change you?
I think it freed me. Like I think it really freed me because I was spending so many hours working, just sheer like working hours on driving marketing for this business and like driving revenue for this business. And it freed me in the sense that, wow, okay, now I can actually go and do something that was completely on my own terms. Now as like a solo founder where I made some different decisions in terms of like how I want my life to look like, how I also like want my team's life to look like. And it doesn't involve working crazy, crazy hours, you know? Yeah, I think that was like a big shift. It like really freed me to go and do something that I was way more interested in, not only in terms of like business, but also in terms of lifestyle and
Mhm.
like, sleep 8 hours a week, a day, not a week.
8 hours.
Yeah. What about you, Steve? Like, because you mentioned that you sold three businesses.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I
Do you
think
kind of
the
build with that in mind and stuff like that?
yeah, I think knowing that, what type of entrepreneur you are, if you're 0 to 1 or 1 and beyond,
Mm,
I think that
that's a
that's a
great.
really famous way of looking at it that, aligns with most people. Like, a lot of people just feel like they're, uh, sort of outside of, the regular career path when they
Yeah.
can't fit in, and that is, like, usually a 0 to 1 person where they love to build from
Hmm.
scratch, and then once it gets very operational on a day to day, they just have to check out and go do something else, and I think I fit into that category, and a lot of people do, so being okay with that, it takes a lot of, younger people a lot more time to be okay with that, and,
Mm,
I think coming to terms with that and knowing that it's okay was always a big thing for me. It was like, okay, yeah, I like building things. I like transitioning them to other people. I like operating them for a little while. I know the team size that I'm comfortable with, but like you originally said,
mm,
it it teaches you when you go through these transactions, like what's required, and when you read these headlines of multi-billion-dollar exits, you're like, that is psychotic. Like the craziness that's involved there,
yeah.
is just next level. Like you have to have such a good team around you to be able to pull stuff off like that. So it's inspiring, for sure. And I want to make sure that we get to the sort of things you would do differently. I know that we talked kind of
Yeah.
about your broker, the experience, how fast it
Whew,
was, but if you could
a
go
lot of fun.
back, anything different?
Yes, almost everything. I would think about a sale much earlier. Just even like, making any kind of plan for a like what if. I would be much more structured about my financials and get our financials, in order way earlier, like up to a year earlier, compared to when you want to sell, and then keep everything up to date, like month by month, because that like took so much time away from us. And when you're thinking about selling, you're maybe not as much thinking about building your business anymore. And that happens to a lot of people where then the business goes down because it just took you so long to get all your documentation ready. And now suddenly your valuation is lower just because of timing. And so get your documents in order, it's the worst part, but honestly, like hiring somebody to be like your accountant full time or, however you need, there's insanely high ROI from that from a sales perspective. So getting that in order. Thirdly, I would focus more on hiring a team and SOPs because now you don't think about your business as your business and like growing it. You have to think about it as an asset. What is actually the thing that you are selling? That's a big question. People that like kept coming up. People kept asking like, what is the thing that you're actually selling? What is the thing that you're selling? And I'd be like, it's a website, like it's a SaaS. But then really, what about partnerships? What about what about partnerships? What about a team? What about SOPs? What about guidebooks? Right? So learning to run your business so that it can run without you, because that's what you want with an exit. A lot of the time, you don't want to be there to run it. Figuring out how anybody can run your business, huge game changer. We definitely did not do that. And so these are all kind of things that I would say would be really, really helpful. Lastly, I would say like in terms of your narrative, it's kind of hard as an entrepreneur, I think, or, as a person building the business who like has built the business to think about, oh, what is valuable about this for someone else? Because you have so much context. You know everything, every single thing. But then when you go and talk to somebody about it, they don't need to know every single thing. They won't, just by sheer fact that you've spent 2 years plus on it and they haven't. But you need to be able to think about the headlines and the chapters, right? It's not a whole book. It's literally a pamphlet. What does that pamphlet look like? And so when you're going in and you're having those conversations, you want to give the TLDR really quickly. You want to be like, this is a great business because bam, bam, bam. These are maybe some of the challenges. These are the growth opportunities. This is what I think that you could be really good at doing for this business and drive it further. And so, think about who your buyer is, why they want to buy your business, and then make sure that you have a very clear story to tell them about why this may or may not be a good fit. Um, yeah, those are definitely things that I would do completely differently. And I think I am doing differently in my second business now.
Yeah, and that's a good segue. What are you working on now after the sale?
Yeah, so I started a AI search business where we help SaaS companies get. I started an AI search business where we help SaaS businesses get sales and visibility through AI search. So that's getting them sales through ChatGPT as well as Google. And we work with companies like Cal.com, EditGPT, HappyScribe. So SaaS businesses doing between 2 million and 2 billion annual revenue. It's been super, super fun because basically we do full stack. Like what we do is we help them with Reddit community marketing. We help them to get into top listicles. So we do outreach for them. And we write really great SEO content that actually helps them to get conversions. And so really what we focus on is product-led SEO and also bottom of funnel SEO, SEO that converts, which is generally not the kind of SEO that most agencies do. But I think really, having been a founder who built a business and then sold it with revenue driven entirely through SEO, you really look at conversion. And it's so wonderful talking to these business owners and being able to like get them actual results. Um, so yeah, that's been
Nice.
really fun.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And the last piece is, has your definition of success kind of changed after all
Yeah.
this?
Oh my God, it's completely different. I think that I used to think of success as, oh, I, need to be in this like shiny building and have a bunch of impressive titles and all of these kind of, external factors of success. But then now I see success so much more as like a sustainable business, a happy team, um, a business that doesn't need me like every single day to be on Slack, being super stressed out. I see success as peace of mind.
Peace of mind? Yeah, like having freedom. uh,
Yeah, peace of mind and freedom. I mean, of course, I think, sorry, let me rephrase that. I think I used to build to be like, I want to be billion-dollar company. And now I build for, being maybe not a billion-dollar company, but $1 million company that does really good profit margins, that has a team that is really, self-sustaining. Um, and I build for me to like have freedom and
Yeah.
peace,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think in the tech space, it's really rare to see that because in the tech space, and I think in like, industries like e-com or like affiliate websites, it's a bit different because I think you see it a lot more. But in like a lot of like in the tech niche, generally what you're going to see is like, oh, everybody's chasing investors and everybody's trying to like fundraise like $2 million or something. Everybody's trying to build a business that like needs 50 engineers to be sustainable. And that's a really hard and stressful business to build. And that's not really the kind of business that I want to build, even though I used to think that that was like what success looked like, opening up techcrunch.com and then seeing this company raised 10 million. Wow, how did they raise 10 million? They don't even have a product. And so now I'm like, I that's okay. I will pass. I will
Yeah.
pass on any of that.
Yeah. The raising, I remember that very specifically. Living in San Francisco was just like reading those headlines,
Yeah.
and when I was much younger, I was like very impressed by it, and that of course they get that vote of confidence, and many of them are serial entrepreneurs and stuff like that. But now as I'm older, I'm like, okay, that's 10 million in the hole that you are right now. How do you get yourself out of that, and
Yeah.
understanding preference stacks, like understanding what you would actually need to exit for
Yeah.
to make those investors their money back first, and then
Yeah.
you get second. Um,
Yeah.
I think there's so many examples of like famous exits where I think maybe it was FanDuel. They sold
Oh, there we go.
for almost $1 billion and the founders made zero, like just because of preference stack. It was like, maybe it was FanDuel. It was one of either DraftKings or FanDuel, one of those famous like sports
That's
ones.
crazy.
Um, but walking away after, that long and almost like, I think it was like five or $700 million just going out to the investors that backed them. And that's just the model that world works on. So,
Yeah.
love that you have identified the freedom concept. I think a lot of people will resonate with that are listening. And the last question is, would you ever sell again? Would you consider flipping another business?
I totally would. Yeah, I totally would. And I'm sure I would do it with Flippa, to be honest.
Nice.
But yeah, I would. I don't think my current business, but I think, there's a lot of space to build really exciting businesses and then sell them. So yeah, definitely.
Sure. Cool. Very cool. Well, wherever you guys are listening, I'll link to what Tanya is working on in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on Humans of Flippa and sharing your story, Tanya.
Thanks so much for your time, Steve. Great to chat.